Hello, dear friends. How are you all doing? Corinne Clapham here, your mystic healer and coach. And listen, please don't judge me. It is like first thing in the morning here, so you know the hair, maybe the voice. But I had a memory come up this morning, and I really wanted to share it because, over the years, it's popped up in my mind, and I felt like there was a lot of nuggets within it. Um, and when it came up again this morning, I'm like, I really want to share it because I feel like there's a lot of people. I don't know what's going on with my shirt. You know what? I don't like when things are too close to my neck, and so sometimes I cut my shirt, and I think I cut this too wide because I usually don't measure it. There'll be an impulse, and I just cut it. So, anyways, nonetheless, let's get back on track here. So, yeah, there's a lot of nuggets within this experience, and I feel like a lot of people would be able to resonate, on some sort of spectrum with at least one of the characters in this experience. And I'm one of the characters because it happened. It happened to me. But so many years ago, back in Toronto, this was in like around St. Lawrence Market. I think I was at a gallery opening, or not a gallery opening. Sorry, it was a an how do you say, like an art showing opening. And I was there and I was sitting on the couch, and this lady sat next to me, or what have you, and we started talking. And she was asking what it is that I do. And so I was explaining that I do help people release emotional and physical discomfort and pain from the body. And I do that cellularly, on a cellular level, energetic level, um, and whatnot, using natural modalities. And we kind of started talking a little bit more about it. And she was saying how her daughter suffers from a lot of seizures and it's been getting worse. And she was really interested in this one program that I have. It's a one-on-one intensive program where there's coaching sessions, but there's also healing sessions. And it's I work very close with the recipients in this. It's like 3 to 4 months, but at that time it was 3 months. Now it's 4 months. But and then there's still other things that they get, like yoga and meditation, whatnot. So instead of like seeing all these different specialists and therapists and Reiki master and all this and yoga instructor, it's kind of like all in one hub. Of course, you still have your medical team, but in terms of the more like holistic, alternative, spiritual path, it's all encompassed in one thing, which personally I think is amazing. I wish I had that when I was healing from my back injury and going through difficult times in my younger years. But that's one of the reasons why I offer it. But anyway, so she was really interested in it. We talked about it. We talked about she asked how much the price was and things like that. And if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're a starting out entrepreneur, I feel like maybe you might relate to this a little bit because, pricing is really interesting thing, I think, for a lot of us. Like it's almost something we have to learn and overcome. Um, and this isn't really what the video is about, but that's anybody who's an entrepreneur totally understands this. But so she was like, I would love for you to chat with my daughter. She was really interested in the program. And so she brought her daughter over. And it's funny because the whole time we're talking, I thought it was like, for some reason, I just thought it was someone a lot younger, but it was someone that was like, I don't know, probably late 20s or something like that, and her husband. And it was what was really fascinating is the way the mom shifted. So when she was talking to me, she was very concerned about her daughter and what she was going through and really wanted her to get help. And she was very much interested in this way of possibly trying out this alternative way of healing because they've kind of been in the medical system for a while, and there hasn't been like a whole lot of progress yet. And so she had this very much energy, and then as soon as she got her daughter and her son there, she completely flipped the script and was like, oh yes, this is so and so, this is what she does, and this is what she charges. And it's interesting the way she said it because there's a couple of different things here. I mean, we can look at things kind of on an egoic level, like on a very three-dimensional level, and on that level, it'd be like, okay, well, it's rude for one thing to do that, and it's almost like Anyways, there's a whole other ways you could describe it with that, but I wanna go a little bit deeper, than that. What had happened there is the mom just sabotaged the situation because the way she set it up right away, she came with it with this negative tone. And so it's interesting because here's the thing, how people do one thing is how they tend to do a lot of things. And this is not a judgment on the mom or anything or anybody. This is not judgment on me or the mom or anybody else that was involved in that experience. But if we can just take a look at some of the behaviors and look deeper, okay, that's what I mean. We're going beyond the egoic 3D realm and looking deeper why that happens. It's important to do that within ourselves because that's where we get the healing. That's where we get the awareness and we can shift and move. And so, and this continues. There's a lot more nuggets here, so stay with me here. So, right away, that was kind of a sabotage because if you present something to someone right away and you're like, "Oh, this could help. This could do this," but it's like this and it's that, and it's you like it's just why would you spin that tone on something if you legitimately want to help someone, you think that could help them, right? Now, the next thing that happened, and then she tried to get her husband kind of on the same page of like, "Oh my god, it's this much money." And it's like, and I was sitting there this whole time, so I'm not really taking it personal. I feel like, again, sometimes we go through things that are lessons to help us, right? And my lesson is gonna be very different than what the mom's lesson is and what the daughter's lesson is in this one. And for me, again, as entrepreneurs, it can be a difficult thing with pricing. And sometimes you really have to stand in your knowing, regardless of what other people say. Because here's the thing, it's all relative, the numbers and the prices. So for the mom, when she was speaking to her daughter, she was saying it was very expensive, like so expensive, so ridiculously expensive. In a moment she didn't. And also her mom spent a lot of money on painting, on artwork. So I guarantee you she spent a lot more money on her artwork to decorate her walls than something that's going to help her daughter. So it's like this is what I mean and it's all relative. And for me, I was giving a lot in that private one-on-one container for that price. I have spent that price that I had it at that time, this is many years ago now, but the price that I had it at that time is the same amount that I've spent on online programs where you don't get any one-on-one time with the person who's facilitating it or coaching it or what have you, which is not where I got all my training, by the way, if you're wondering. A lot of my trainings and accreditations have been in person, and we spent a lot of money on that, okay? Like, a lot of money, so and I'm still paying off some of my training accreditations, so it's it's this is what I mean by it's relative, because maybe for them it is, and for someone who spent that same amount on online programs but don't get the one-on-one, it's and the one-on-one that you would have got with those same teachers that you had the online courses with, what they charge for even just 1 hour is like 5 times the amount that I'm charging for a 3-month container and like, I don't know, 7 one-on-one deep healing coaching sessions plus extra stuff that they get with this. So it's like, this is what I mean. It's all relative, right? So we can't base our prices based on one person's reaction and someone else's. Because at the end of the day, and now I'm going into a little bit more messaging here for entrepreneurs, but I want the rest of you to stay with me here for a moment, especially if you identify maybe with the mom in the situation or the daughter, and there's still more to come. There's like one really important nugget too that I wanted to share that experience. But regardless of who you identify with, this is what I'm saying. It's not about like judging each other. It's not about being in shame if you notice you've been there, but like notice, do you ever sabotage an opportunity for someone else? And ask yourself, where does that come from? And I'm gonna go more into the tidbits of like where you may relate. I just want to finish up this story here. So, and then at one point, her daughter said that this is a very important thing. Okay, so she said She would rather continue to have all those seizures than to spend that money. And so here's the fascinating thing. I think she was trying to insult me, but in the end, she was insulting herself. And here's the thing. I I just kinda sat there and I actually just felt really bad for her because it was like, wow, that here's the thing, and a lot of people may identify with this. They may not have did it in a way that's extremely abrasive like that person was, but even in their mind, I want you to check in if ever in your mind you have said that to yourself about something, because here's the thing, when I saw her say that, I was like, wow, that must be very low self-esteem for someone to think that. Like, all I wanted to say to her is like, you are actually worth any dollar amount for you to heal what needs to be healed and live a life that you want to live. Like, you are more important and valuable than those art pieces on the wall. If your mom's spending that much money and has no problem on art pieces, but then thinks this is too much for her daughter. And this is the other thing, the money stories carry down. Where do you even think the daughter even learned that from? Right? And you could see that with the mom. You can see there's a portion, at least a portion that has come from that side. And you can see that just in the dynamic, in the way that things happen. And so if we can really take a look at what our belief systems are and what our actions are, that's where the turning point happens. That's where the healing and the release happens. But you got it. Like, the first step is having the awareness. The second step is actually having the willingness. And it's to know that you are fucking worthy. If you have to get help to heal through something, there is nothing wrong with that. Even coaches have coaches, healers have healers, right? Therapists should probably have therapists. Like, there's everybody. Everybody. It doesn't make you less of a person if you have to turn and get professional help. And money is a currency. This is what we give in exchange for the energy and the service and the offerings the other person is giving, right? Like, when we go in a store, we purchase fruit, whatever it is, and it's all it is an exchange. And if you find yourself in these thoughts and minds that are really there, what I find is that helps is saying, if I had a lot of money right now, would I be thinking this way right now? And try that. Try that. And listen, I'm not saying you have to go out and spend that money, but I want you to just check in with the mentality, with the belief systems. So, and we've all been there. We've all been there when well, I feel like most of us have. I can tell you, I've definitely gone through some financial hardships in my life in the past. Like, you wouldn't believe. There's been times I couldn't even afford food at the dollar store. Like, I get it. I get it. It's and it can make people do funny things and act certain, like, just weird ways. But here's the thing. If you can notice when you're starting to feel that within the body or in your emotions, is just asking, hold on, how much is this of stress of feeling like you don't have enough money, or stress of feeling like you really want something but you feel that you don't have the money right yet for it? Okay, that's one way to look at it. The other way that I always find helps put in perspective is what I just suggested too, is asking yourself, if I have had a lot of money right now, would I have acted or would I have thought what I just did or thought? Doesn't necessarily mean you had to have an interaction with another person. Just it could be even like an internal thing you're going through when you're at the grocery store or something. And that really helps to shift it, because normally the answer would be no. And then the next step that I find that's really helpful is asking yourself, if I did have a lot of money, how would I be looking at the situation? How would I have reacted to the situation differently? that can instantly shift you more into the frame of the mind of a person who does have more than enough money. And I know some of you are going to be listening to this and be like, you're going to keep trying to justify, well, that you don't have it and this and that. But here's the thing. We have to shift our mentality as well. If you want to keep small, you're going to continue being small. So if you want to learn and to evolve and to create your inner being to match, which matches our, where our thoughts is going to match what's showing up in our external world, right? So if we can shift that, we can start to invite different opportunities. The more we open and shift our vibration, the more we're going to attract different things within that. Okay. So maybe you don't see things concrete yet. And this is one thing about manifestation. A lot of the times people feel, I will be happy when this comes. My big house, let's just say, use as an example. But it's actually very backwards. It's once we can already feel that vibration of what it feels like to attain what it is that we desire, is when we are starting to attract things on that vibration to come in. Okay, so remember that. And yes, it's okay to have moments of realizations of where you are financially or whatever's going on, but only do it to serve a purpose in a sense that is going to help you to take action steps. For example, if someone is really flustered about their finances, okay, feel the emotions, go through it, do it. But what's the steps you're going to take? How are you going to get in financial control? Are you going to take another job? Are you going to skim back? Maybe it's looking at the budget. Maybe it's actually looking at the numbers. And I know that's something that's like, hey, I get that. I identify with that too. I have a sister she will look at every penny of everything. And if someone owes her money, she will like every penny has come back. And my mom and I are very different. We're very, I don't really like to look at those things. I don't like to keep track of who owes what and this and that. Like I like to just, be in the moment. But I'm having to learn, even though it's kind of was outside my scope. This is another thing we have to let go, is letting go of the identity blockers we put on ourselves. Because I could say, oh, I'm not good with numbers. If I'm not good with numbers, then I need to learn to get good at numbers, right? We have to stop saying these things about us. And sometimes it develops because maybe we were raised in a family and, typically one's like the academic or good with numbers or technology. It's kind of my sister. And I was more arts and more creative and, maybe didn't get the highest grades. And quite frankly, didn't really care about school that much. And, but that we don't have to continue living life in these boxes of these titles. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I remember when I was in my training for as a flight attendant, this was many, many years ago. And it's very rigorous training. There's a lot to know. And you would never think that unless you were in that realm because, you think, well, don't they just serve food and drinks on the plane? Which is like probably 5% of the training service is what you learn. The rest is actually safety. And like, trust me, there's a lot within it. And I don't blame anybody who doesn't realize the capacity of it because how could you know unless you were there or you know someone, right? But anyways, my point is I remember thinking, gosh, I was almost like using that experience in my training to see if I could get outside the box of being that old title of the kid that never got good grades and didn't do well and blah, 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 blah. Part of it, the title was adopted from other people around me, teachers, what have you, parents, maybe. But we have to take responsibility ourselves because I also took on that title. Maybe I didn't know that's what was going on when I was younger, but now we know. So we have to take responsibility, right? If we don't like it, we have to shift it. And so I use that experience like, okay, let's see if I can really apply myself to this. And yeah, that meant studying extra longer hours. It meant doing cue cards. It meant maybe meeting up with a friend that was in my training class. And we would get together and like test each other, like whatever I needed to do, but at the same time, tried to bring fun into it. Um, to me, it was like a proof. Can I apply myself? Can I do this? Of course, the answer is yes. And I did, and I did really, really good. I didn't get 100% on all my exams there. There's probably like 4 or 6 exams we wrote in the span of like 4 weeks. And then we had all our drills, but it was pretty close. I got 100 on quite a number of them, and then like 96 or something like that. I don't know, which is big for me, by the way. Like when I was in high school, my parents were just happy. Like if I got a C, like everybody was happy. Like, oh my God, you did so good, you didn't get a D. So, like but this is the thing. We have to stop putting ourselves in these boxes. And why does that tie into what I'm talking about? Because what was happening with that female, and again, maybe we could all identify with that in some way. This is why I say let's not come at these things in a judgmental way, but like, let's look at this. Is there a part of us that can identify in any of these spectrums, right? And then how do we have the healing and the moving and the solutions and the action steps to move forward? And there might have been a time, I think, maybe when I was younger and I was going through a back injury and seeing lots of chiro specialists, doing everything in my power to avoid surgery and cortisol shots. And that's how I went onto the alternative route. Everything that I went to with that helped me. And then I wanted to get my education and that my accreditations to be able to help people in that. So that's kind of how that all transpired. But, you know, there was probably a time maybe when my mom was like, oh, maybe you should get this help or that. And I shied away from it a little bit because I was thinking about the money. And yeah, money was tight back then. It wasn't working. I had a back injury. I was off work. And then you have short term for a little bit. Maybe you have long term for a little bit. And then you're off that. And that's a whole headache, by the way, dealing with all that stuff. People think you're just like having the time of your life at home, not working. But they don't realize that a lot of that money is not sufficient enough to sustain yourself. So you do end up going in a lot of debt, and then it just stresses you out even more because you're supposed to be healing, but you're dealing with all this, and not to mention all the emails, all the doctor follow ups, and the amount of overwork you got to do that because people are usually dropping the ball on the other end for the job. Anyway, whatever. That's a whole other conversation. But my point is, always remember you are worth the money. You are worth investing in yourself to get the help you need in order to get to where you want. In this case, it would have been that person for her to get the help to heal the root cause of what the seizures are. You can put medication on that all you want, but at some point that person is going to have to heal what actually originally has been creating it, which is always an emotional component. So it's, you know, that was what it was for her. For some people, it might be like getting a business consultant for their company, right? Like for everybody, it's a little bit different. Where do we want to excel? Where do we need help? And who can we turn to who can help us for that, right? That's where we invest in ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are worth it, right? And where people get tripped up is they start thinking about the money. But then this is where you go back and you ask yourself, if I had a lot of money, how would I think of this situation differently? And I'm not saying that you have to go ahead and act and do it if you don't have the money, but all I'm saying is, how would you think and feel differently in that situation if you did have a lot of money? Start getting yourself tapped into that energy and that vibration. Start becoming the person who does have that money. How does that person think and view and react in these situations? Start tapping into it. You don't need the money to tap into that. Sure, it makes it a lot nicer. You will get there eventually, but start with this and know that you are worth it. I feel it's so sad that, and the thing is, we've been kind of conditioned and brought up in a system where we've been taught to value material things over our own health. And you could see that was a prime example with the mom there and with the daughter there. Maybe the daughter, I don't think was so much about materialistic things over her own health. I think that was more of a like a self-worth and confidence thing that need to be worked on there. But the mother, because she, went on and on and on to tell me before she introduced me to daughter about how much she loves collecting art, how much she, I mean, these are big art pieces, so she's dropping a lot of money on that. And guaranteed, they're a lot more. They're probably like triple the amount of what I was charging for this 3-month one-on-one working closely with healing and coaching and yoga and everything else in there. So this is what I mean. People don't even realize how much they're valuing material things over our own health. And we're seeing that paradigm shift a lot now. People are starting to understand how much their health and their mental health is. And it's just fascinating. Like I remember over the years I would hear speakers, or probably I read in a book somewhere, that people spend more money on maintaining their car, their vehicle, rather than maintaining and taking good care of their own vehicle here, the body, the vessel. That's a really big eye opener. It's a really big eye opener. And it's really sad that we have lived in a society like that. And we can't continue to keep blaming society. Like we have to realize, okay, that's maybe where I got my belief systems from. But now I have to make a conscious choice to shift and change. And once you notice that, you will start to see advertisements. You'll start to see the conditioning. You'll start to see the programming everywhere. And it's stuff that we've seen all the time, but we didn't know, we weren't awake to it. So subconsciously we were being fed all this, right? Health is always number one. Physical health, emotional health is always number one. You've got nothing if you don't have that. What's the person who has a big mansion if they're so physically ill because they haven't tended to their emotional wounds that need healing? They can't even enjoy all those things. So, what I want everyone who's been, and thank you if you've made it to the end here, please put it in the comments below if you have. What I really want people to walk away with is, where did you identify in those three characters in that story? What is it that you need to shift within yourself and the action steps to move forward in a healthy direction for yourself? And that's not putting down someone for their prices. I can tell you that right now. Because all you're doing is just putting down yourself doing that. It's really low vibration, by the way, to behave that way to someone else. But it's, please, I just, because like really sometimes a situation, that experience has popped up over this happened so many years ago, but it has popped up over the years, just here and there sporadically. And sometimes I have a bit of anger about it because I just think that was a little bit malicious for someone to do that, to try to get her daughter and her husband to kind of turn on someone um, about something that was really dear to my heart. And actually, to be quite honest, I felt that I undercharged quite significantly in terms of what I was offering. There was a little bit of that, but for the most part, that was like the ego part that was a little bit disappointed in that, and how someone would behave that way. But the greater part of me just kind of always felt a little bit bad that the daughter was willing to endure so much more pain because she didn't feel like she was worth the money to heal and to feel better and live a life she truly wants. It was, I don't know, sometimes I kind of just send a little prayer. I hope she finds that like confidence and that self-worth within herself, because we all deserve it. We all deserve to live a life where we're happy and we're healthy. There might be certain periods of times where we go in these challenging times, but they're there to help us. They're there to push us through. And most of the time, it's there to put people on a path of connection with their higher self. And it's interesting. So now I'm doing this video. It's 2022 right now. There's a lot of wonky things going on in the world. We had 2 years of lockdowns on and off, and so that hurt businesses a lot. And the reason why I'm bringing this up because the other day, so now that happened. Now there's this weird shift, this interesting shift in what I think a lot of people are stepping into their sovereignty and learning about their worth. So a lot of people are not going to work a lot of crap jobs for little pay, where they're not getting treated properly. And so there's this mass issue everywhere, actually, where people can't hire people, like restaurants and stuff like that. And so I heard somewhere in another country, like they were even shutting down emergency rooms because they can't get the staff. And keep in mind, during the 2 years, they ended up firing. A lot of people lost their jobs if they chose not to get a V injection, which is understandable because it's still no one knows the outcomes of that, and even the outcomes that some people are getting are pretty serious adverse reactions. But anyways, I'm not going to get into that conversation. My point is, so a lot of people were put in a situation: if you don't get this, then you lose your job. And now all of a sudden, these places are hurting for employers. So, and then a lot of people are like, "Well, you just disposed of us during this. Now you want us back." So a lot of people are stepping into their sovereignty. Where was I going with this? Um, hold on. There was a reason why I brought this up. Something- Oh, yes. But, and when I heard that, and yes, that is scary. But here's the thing, what it's going to do. For some people, they're going to spin into